everyone, today I'm going to be discussing Doja Cat and what some would perceive as internalized racism. There's a lot to say when it comes to Doja Cat. This is just my opinion. I don't know Doja Cat at all. From what I see, it reminds me of like this pattern of anti-blackness, and I think it's worth talking about and examining. So there's this literary trope called the tragic mulatto. So the tragic mulatto is portrayed as a selfish woman who will give up everything, including her black family, in order to live as a white person. These words, of course, are illustrative, as it states in a book, "Don't come for me. If you see me in the street, don't speak to me. From this moment on, I'm white. I am not colored. You have to give me up." The words were spoken by Peola, a tortured, self-hating black girl in the movie Imitation of Life. Peola, played adeptly by Freddie Washington, had skin that looked white, but she was not socially white. She was a mulatto. Peola was tired of being treated as a second-class citizen, tired, that is, of being treated like a 1930s black American, as stated by the New Jim Crow Museum. Now, of course, every biracial person doesn't fit into this box, yet Doja Cat seems to, in my opinion. Doja Cat has used the absence of her father in her childhood to reject her blackness, in my opinion, which has made her drop her curves, her 4C hair, and any attractions to black men, and mock black people, her fans, while still benefiting off of her proximity to blackness. Now that I got my main points out of the way, I'm going to talk about this more. So internalized racism has been talked about for years among black scholars and the black identity. Yet in 1987, Suzanne Lipsky wrote about the conceptualization of internalized racism as a 4-factor model. She says that 1, internalization of negative stereotypes reflects the extent to which individuals accept negative stereotypes about black people. 2, the belief in the biased representation of history reflects the extent to which individuals accept fabricated historical facts. 3, alteration of physical appearance reflects the extent to which participants desire to alter their physical appearance to conform to a Eurocentric aesthetic. 4, hair change reflects the extent to which participants prefer straight, chemically processed hair to natural hair. In the late 1990s, the term internalized racism was coined by the sociologist Karen D. Pike, and she defined it as the internalization of racial oppression by the racially subordinate. In her study, The Psychology of Racism, Robin Nicole Johnson emphasizes that internalized racism involves both conscious and unconscious acceptance of a racial hierarchy in which whites are consistently ranked above people of color. Internalized racism is the acceptance of negative beliefs about one's own racial group. It can be caused by exposure to racism from others or by internalizing negative messages about one's own race from society. Internalized racism can have a number of negative consequences, including low self-esteem, self-sabotage, difficulty forming relationships with other people of color. And so earlier I talked about how I feel that Doja Cat's relationship with her father, or I guess you could say absent relationship with her father, impacted how she viewed herself as a biracial black woman. And so I just want to talk more about that. So Doja Cat, whose real name is...
My name's Amala Dlamini. Musically, I go by Doja Cat.
Has a Jewish mother and a father who is from South Africa. And I do think that perhaps, again, her not being raised by her father, but her father being kind of seen as an opportunist as Doja Cat became a brighter star, caused a level of resentment. And so there are different interviews where Doja Cat talks about her father's absence, how that impacted her self-worth, I would say, because she talks about, like, for instance, in the movie Austin Powers, there's a song where Austin, the main character, he talks about how his father wasn't there. In reality, I believe Austin Powers' father was horrible. Him not knowing him at all just made him feel like he was missing out on something. So in the Narwhal interview, Doja Cat sings that same tune.
Daddy wasn't there to take me to the fair, but he was a producer.
Yeah, he was. Oh, no, he was a dancer. My brother was a producer. My dad's a dancer.
But he also did producing and rapping. For instance, right on this cassette, right here, Mercy. If we turn it over, what do we see on the back? Produced by...
Dude, what the fuck?
There are other interviews where she meets like a Whoopi Goldberg, and she talks about how her father is a famous actor from South Africa, which he was. Whoopi says how she knew him and how he was a great man.
Dunisani.
Get out of here.
Yeah, he's Crocodile.
And Doja Cat kind of has like this emotional moment where she says, well, you know more about my father than I do. He wasn't in my life. And Whoopi Goldberg, she kind of seems a bit speechless. She just says something like kind of positive. She's like, oh, well, he's a great man. But you can see like this level of sadness over Doja Cat's face. I think there's different videos where Doja Cat highlights her anti-blackness, whether it be from music or her just saying that she feels like people who aren't black or whatever have a different life and some level of freedom that black people don't have. Someone says Doja Cat's actions don't make sense to you because you're not here trying to get chose by white men. She has to overcompensate for the fact that she's one of the rap girlies and distance herself from that because white men might fuck those women, but they definitely don't start relationships with them. She has to compensate for her body type. As you see, she started getting a lot of social praise for her thickness. She immediately lost the weight and got very thin. She has to make clear she isn't into black men and has no desire for them, which she lets leak publicly periodically. This is also why her music has gotten a little weirder to make sure that her fan base isn't too typical of a pop rap girl. She wants it a little quirky to keep you niggas out. None of her behavior is strange to me because I grew up in a white suburb, and so I've already seen the hoops that black and mixed girls specifically have to jump through to date white men. And so that opinion piece was talking about the fact that Doja Cat says she doesn't date black men, and she's often seen with like this mediocre looking white guy, whatever have you. Doja Cat definitely has a type. And I would argue that her saying she doesn't date black men, which is her right, don't get me wrong, but I believe she's saying that because of her relationship with her father. Due to this, a lot of black men have thrown hate towards Doja Cat. Some people have said, well, you know, black men say they don't date black women all the time. You're mad because the preference doesn't want you, whatever. But the issue, I think, isn't so much, again, of Doja Cat dating white men. It's the issue, I think, that people feel like her saying she's only exclusive to them is weird. And the fact that she currently is dating an alleged racist Jay Cyrus. So Jay Cyrus is formerly Vine famous, and he's currently a Twitch streamer. He probed deeper into history and scandals where multiple young women have came forward claiming that Jay Cyrus emotionally manipulated them during their time moderating his Twitch streams. Cyrus even issued a since deleted public apology for his misconduct, and Doja Cat's affiliation with Cyrus, combined with her own controversies, kind of intensifies the criticisms directed at her, which are made worse by her failure to address the situation with tact and sincerity, as stated by the Harvard Crimson. A lot of people feel like her boyfriend is problematic. Doja Cat doesn't seem to care, honestly. She seems to defend him and she still shows up with him. And so a lot of people have, again, criticized her for this. Not to mention, again, when you see Doja, she's, of course, I would say she still has a level of curves, but, you know, she's cut off her hair. She has blonde hair. And so that has caused some people to believe that she is anti-black. Another thing that would make someone question whether Doja Cat has a level of anti-blackness or internalized racism is her relationship with her hair. In addition to her picking the quote-unquote wrong men or problematic men and just having racist slurs in the chat room has been her. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how she picks her controversial song. In 2015, Doja Cat made a song titled "Didn't Do Nothing," a term used to disparage black victims of police brutality. Y'all ever heard people say who go to prison, they be like, what you do? And they were like, man, I ain't do nothing. I ain't do shit. You know, I'm just in here whoop de whoop de whoop. That song kind of it's like a historical racial context. People feel like that she was out of pocket for that. So there were people who said they saw her in this tiny chat platform where she was making sexual comments to men who were reportedly members of the alt-right incel community, an online subculture of white supremacists who are involuntarily celibate. In a statement posted to her Instagram, she said that I've used public chat rooms to socialize since I was a child. I shouldn't have been on some of those chat room sites, but I personally have never been involved in any racist conversations. Sorry to everyone I offended. People, screenshot it when they realized Doja Cat was in these chat rooms, which I'm still wondering, how the hell did you know? You must have been in it, but whatever, nonetheless. So I think that Doja Cat has this history of anti-blackness, and again, I feel like a lot of it stems from her childhood trauma. I think that her talent and her body is what got her noticed in the first place, particularly being biracial, being that black fan base, where she did songs with Tyga, she did songs with Gucci Mane and Nicki Minaj, and just she's always been East eccentric. But I think the fact that a lot of people saw her as beautiful as this biracial woman gave her this leverage. And I know people said, oh, she lost her mind, etc. I don't personally feel like she lost her mind. I feel like Doja Cat has always been who she is. She knew what people liked as far as like beauty capital or beauty standards. She used that for some leverage. And similar to what people would say the Kardashians did, let's say Kim Kardashian, she used black people, she used like attractiveness of the black woman's body or shapely body, whatever, to get attention. And then when she capitalized off of it, she went back to being who she could be, which in this case, Doja Cat is half white. And so that's a level of privilege in itself. So now I'm going to read a little bit of public opinion. Someone says, well, I think people can learn from their mistakes if they're willing to change. It's not really a valid reason to avoid accountability and bury the past. That's why you should establish favoring connections, interests with no strings attached, as you cannot predict the nature of something with a morally, ethically questionable history records. And that's in regards to Doja Cat and the things she's done. Someone says, how did a white woman like Doja Cat get away with a song called Niggas Ain't Shit? He only dates white men but says niggas ain't shit. Seems like industry mandated agenda to me. Same way a white man like Drake can get away with saying or a white man like Logic or a white man like J. Cole. Let's not do this. To me, they not white, they biracial, but whatever. Someone says she was supposed to be canceled a long time ago, so now here we are. So again, Doja Cat has had crossover appeal. I think that Doja only cares about Doja, honestly, and getting ahead. She is whiny like a lot of people haven't had their fathers in their life. Like, I'm not saying that should be the norm, but I'm just saying there's no reason to be like anti-black or like problematic to others, but I guess I get it. Unfortunately, Doja Cat does seem to like have some level of internalized racism and despises an entire gender of men, which happens to be black men. So my unpopular opinion overall is Doja Cat only acted out because she got tired of being depicted as black with curves and kinky hair. Used black folks to be seen, hence her duos with black male artists and Nicki. And then when she got enough stardom, she went to the self-hating person she has always been and never had to pander to black people again because her popularity was beyond black people. That crossover appeal and talent carries her. I do understand she was neglected as a child and her father did do some shady stuff via the media's depiction. However, I don't think any woman would give their child a full African name without once being romantically involved or having some level of respect for the father. I think there's two sides to a story and three sides to the truth. Overall, Doja Cat seems to be in need of healing. On the contrary, she doesn't see herself and still benefits from her talent and beauty capital. She can be counseled, but probably won't be totally unless she triggers her non-black audience. On a more so positive note, Susan Lipsky suggests that each individual commit him or herself to learning to identify and recognize patterns of internalized racism in him or herself and in others. Create ways of reminding ourselves to suspect patterns of internalized racism in all relationships and interactions with others that are not working well and are not characterized by understanding, cooperation, clear thinking, and safety. We can begin by asking some of these questions. What has been good about being black? What makes me proud of being black? What are black people really like? What has been difficult about being black? What do I want other black people to know about me? How have I been hurt by my own people? Be specific. And do I remember standing up against the mistreatment of one black person by another? Do I remember being strongly supported by another black person? Do I remember that another black person, unrelated, really stood up for me? And when do I remember acting on some feeling of internalized oppression or racism? So that's all I have to say about this. These are my thoughts, and my thoughts are my own. Thank you for listening to Books and Looks TV. I'll see y'all next time.